Good morning. It is Tuesday, and I basically have the house to myself. I'm currently staying at my parents' house, and I thought it would be really fun because I'm back in my childhood home, to read some childhood favourites. So this week I will be reading Lily B on the Brink of Cool. I will be reading Artemis Fowl, and I will be reading Meg Cabot's How to Be Popular. Now, all three of these are the last three of a list that I created right at the start of my booktube career, where I had a list of kids' books from my childhood I wanted to reread, and they are the last three. So at the end of this vlog, I will actually be ranking which books I loved the most upon rereading them. Were they worth it? Did they hold up? Etc. So I will let you know. But I'm expecting my lunch to arrive any minute, so I'm going to go do that and get some reading done, and I will catch up with you once I have read something.
Hey, so I just thought I would catch you up because I have made a start with these two. So Artemis Final, I'm a little bit further in, so I will start with that one. At the beginning of this, it felt very, very similar to Skullduggery, which was really interesting to me because Skullduggery is one of my favourite middle grade series of all time, and I don't remember engaging with this one as much at the beginning, but I'm already starting to lose interest in it. I'm just under 100 pages in, and I just don't care about one of the perspectives. So you have the perspective of Artemis. He is very much a Skullduggery-esque type character. He banters with everybody. He's got his kind of sidekicks that are incredibly loyal. I really like the setup of how his family works. There's already some trauma there. There's already kind of like some emotional entanglements. And then on the other side of the perspective, you have Holly, who is a leprechaun, who is very much an ambitious little elf who really wants to do well in her job and is struggling big time. And it's just getting to the point that is kind of on the synopsis where he abducts her. And I'm really struggling with her perspective because whilst I am all for female protagonists going out there and getting what is theirs and fighting against patriarchy, etc., there are quite a few times when her own kind of prejudged assertions of the misogyny she's going to experience kind of get in her own way. And there's a couple of times when her boss is talking to her and she takes it in a very like he's being misogynistic way, and he's not, and like that's weird because usually it's the other way around. It's more like, oh, I'm sure he means well, and he doesn't. Whereas in this one it's the opposite. It's a case of she is seeing an antagonist where there isn't one, and then she's like, there's all these hints to all these times that she's messed up and how important it is that she needs to renew her magic, and it just, I feel like she's getting in her own way. And because she's getting in her own way, I'm finding it frustrating, and therefore I'm not enjoying reading it as much. But I'm not going to DNF it. I'm not at DNF stage. I'm just not as enamoured with this as I thought I would be with a kids reread. Now, I have a real thing when it comes to rereading books anyway, because the nostalgia carries big weight. So the problem with nostalgia in that sense is that I, in my head, have set it up on this pedestal, and when it doesn't then match the pedestal, it doesn't just fall off the pedestal, it falls into the trash. So I end up being a lot more critical about books that I've adored as a kid, and that's why rereads are really important to me. So this one is not doing what I need it to do at the moment, but it's very early doors. It's very early doors. I'm only about a third of the way through, so we will see if it improves. Now I've barely touched this one, but I can definitely kind of give you a breakdown. So Lily Be on the Brink of Cool was one of my favourite books as a kid. It is about a young girl who befriends this stranger who seems really exciting, living her best life, except that person then takes her for granted, and really abuses the friendship. And I remember as a kid thinking, like, it was genius. I thought it was a really clever book. I forgot that it was set in New York, so that's a really nice twist. But this is very much like, because it's written in a diary format, it's very similar to, like, Adrian Mole, where the main character is incredibly self-centered, self-absorbed, because it's all from their perspective. And it's very Adrian Mole meets Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging, like that kind of like, oh, the world's so against me, trying to be different and edgy, and I just want my friends, and I want to have adventures, and I want to be a writer, and this, that, and the other. So it's very, very similar to those two. If you like those two, I think you will like this one. Again, I'm not sure if it's holding up to the nostalgia, but I'm enjoying this one, even just off the first few pages, a lot more than I'm enjoying Artemis Fowl, which is a shame because I was really, really hyped for both of these. These were the two that I was like, I mean, to be fair, all three of them. I just haven't got to the Mecha one yet. But Mecha, because I've been trying others, I'm not as hyped for it. I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it. It's just going to be another book for this vlog. Whereas these two were the two that I was like really excited to see whether they hold up. I think this cover is hideous. I still think this cover is hideous, and I'm disappointed that this copy is so tatty. I've had this so long that it's falling apart, because this cover doesn't exist anymore, and the covers that are there now, they don't look like this. They don't look nearly as cool as this. So that's just another little tidbit. Just thought I'd waste some time with that. I am so tired. I don't know what it is about this whole festive season. I'm broken emotionally. I'm so tired. But it's been really nice to kind of chill out and read some books that are very easy, gentle reads. I think I'm going to take a wander tomorrow. I think I'm going to go and collect some B-roll from just around town, because I don't think when I've done vlogs before that I've really taken in and shown you how beautiful Folkestone can be. So I think I'm going to do that. But my parents are... they've got some bits on as well, so I might be seeing them. I might not actually get out of the house. We shall see. But hopefully I will have read something by the next time I catch up with you. Fingers crossed. Okay, so because I was back in my hometown, I was able to catch up with some friends and we were going to play D&D. Now, the D&D game didn't actually happen, but I wanted to create a D&D combat board. I thought I would show you the process with which I made that combat board. So first and foremost, I went to Hobbycraft. I spent way too much money and I bought this bit of like cardboard ply. I bought some acrylic paints. I got a sponge and I put some water in a small Tupperware tub so that I could make it messy. I then proceeded to put some blue paint and white paint in the Tupperware tub, making it even more messy, but I was hoping to create this kind of mixture effect, almost like a marble effect, so that it wasn't a consistent painting across, because I don't know if you've ever looked at water, but water doesn't look all one colour. So I was hoping that by essentially just sponging this bluey white mess all over the board, it would make it look like it was moving, make it look like it wasn't stationary. I went over it a few times so that I could make sure that there was no board peering through, so that even as it was drying, it was changing colour and changing shape. And then I started doing these squiggles across the board because that was where my waves were going to be, because, you know,
water, waves, ships, etc. It was a whole thing. This is where it started to go wrong. I did this thing where you run white acrylic along the edge, and I thought the acrylic would be thick enough and my mum's hairdryer strong enough that I could get the acrylic to move. As you can imagine, that did not work. Please leave that to a professional because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Instead, I decided to take a Bob Ross approach of just jamming it on the one clean bit of sponge I had and kind of mixing it back into the blue and hoping that I could create this kind of like ombre effect if I just kept adding white and blue. And somehow, eventually my too much gene gave up and it actually worked out. And this is what it looks like with the ship and monsters on. Like I said, it would have been a really hard combat, but they never got to play it, so hopefully I'll be able to save it for next year. And here's some bonus footage of my cat also giving it the seal of approval. Okay, so you can see that I am officially back in Banbury, and therefore this is going to be the end of this vlog. However, I will go through in a sec the full list of books that I wanted to read that were from my childhood, which ones I started, which ones I finished, and which ones I DNF'd, etc. Not necessarily specifically in this vlog, but the list that inspired this vlog, essentially. So wrapping up the books I did read for this vlog, I only managed 2, and this one I'm halfway through because Artemis Fowl took me so long to get through, and it was a mixture of wanting to pick up other things because the moment I started this vlog I wanted to do literally anything else, and also because there is a split perspective with Artemis Fowl. Now, everything is close third. We get to see what's in their heads, but only when it's convenient. And there was one thing that was in particular really aggravating about Artemis Fowl, which is you'd have a set period of time of things happening, and then the author would skip back a couple of seconds to then have it move again from the perspective of another character, which meant that the timeline kind of repeated itself really awkwardly. And I found that really frustrating and really jarring, and I found myself skipping over chunks because I was like, I don't care. I've seen that this happens. I've seen that that's how this character reacts to this situation. I want to know what happens next. And then the plot kind of culminating in Artemis Fowl, like essentially oopsieing his way into the ending, was really frustrating because he's meant to be like this young Moriarty, and I just didn't buy it. I just didn't believe it. And I can absolutely see why people enjoy Artemis Fowl. But my issue is, I've read Skullduggery Pleasant, and all of the things that I loved about Artemis Fowl I can find in Skullduggery Pleasant, and all the things that I hated about Artemis Fowl I don't find in Skullduggery at all. So if you've read Skullduggery and you want something similar, fine, pick up Artemis Fowl. Apparently it's a great series. I will not be reading further than this one. I will also be unhauling this, which means I get to move a new book onto my shelf, which is very exciting. As for Lily B on the Brink of Cool, this I did really enjoy. Like I said, I'm only halfway through, but I've been doing this in like much bigger chunks. It's written like a diary. It's very Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging meets Adrian Mole in that way. But what's really interesting is, because this is a reread, this is also a reread, I just remember enjoying it a bit more. Because this is a reread and I know what's going to happen, I do find that there is a lot more setup than I remember there being. So essentially the story of Lily B follows this young girl who just wants to be cool, but she's been raised by these really boring, really provincial parents who I very much get the vibe they are much older parents, and they keep taking her on these family outings that are really boring and really embarrassing, and she just wants to be cool. And she starts hanging out with these people that she meets at a wedding that are meant to be like distant relations of her mum. and they're really cool, they're really fun, they get into trouble a lot, and she just gets kind of like caught up in it. However, they then get her in bigger and bigger trouble, and it turns out that they're actually like scam artists, and it's very authentic to the way scam artists work and the way they manipulate people. It's been really interesting to read it thus far. I'm really looking forward to finishing this one. I just didn't get a chance to finish it whilst at home. So as far as like those two go, I'm really glad I gave both of these another go. I'm gonna go through the rest of the list of other children's books that I've reread over the last couple of years since I originally made the video with the set 10 of books that I wanted to reread from my childhood. So, top of that list was the Vampirate series. Now, I reread Vampirates, really enjoyed it, and then they had these really stunning editions come out that I just absolutely adored. But trying to reread book 2 has been a struggle. So, hopefully I can finish that whole series of like 8 books in 2023, but it's unlikely if I can't make it past book 2. I'm gonna give it a go. I'm going to try. Maybe it's because I was trying to pick it up too soon, but I'm going to give it a go because I actually really enjoyed the way that was done. It was very much a middle grade. I somehow in my head got it in my head that it was going to be a kissy YA. Wasn't. It's definitely more of a middle grade. So I think going into book 2 knowing that, I should be better prepared. But I still enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, and I would generally recommend to anyone who enjoys like the Percy Jackson series or Artemis Fowl. It has a really interesting dynamic of characters, lots of action, lots of banter, and I like the fact that these pirates have like a political system all their own, and then there are these vampirates that are vampires as well as pirates. It's just really fun. How to Train Your Dragon was another one that I really enjoyed. Again, much younger than I remember it being. It had loads of illustrations in it. The writing was very middle grade-y. And it was one of those ones where actually, like, again, it was a comfort read. I enjoyed it. I don't think I'm going to be continuing the rest of the series, though. Ella Enchanted is one of those ones that I feel like held up the best, in probably on par with Lily B, where at first, I mean, the timing and the pacing of it was bizarre, because at one minute it would take like 3 whole chapters to do a weekend, and then suddenly it time skips a year. There were things like that, but I really liked the way it handled a variety of different like social topics like neglect and poverty and things like that in this very gentle fantasy that is a fairy tale retelling, and it has that classic Cinderella vibe, but very differently. One thing I will say though is that the film does a lot to rectify the kind of racist undertones of it. Now, the racist undertones, it's part of the plot. It's there for a reason. But I do feel like the film did a better job of not making it racist, which was really interesting. Good for you guys. But another one that would hold up and I would recommend. Now, I actively chose not to read 2 of the books that were originally on this list. The first one was Donkey on the Sands, which is a short story collection by Enid Blyton. It's a short story collection by Enid Blyton. If you don't know, Enid Blyton, whilst being a childhood favourite of all of our parents and grandparents, incredibly problematic, super racist, super sexist stories, not what I need in 2023, and I'm going to leave those childhood memories of wonder and fantasy in my childhood. Equally, there was a book called Adorkable by Sarah Manning that I really wanted to pick up again, and I actually unhauled my copy because I didn't want to. I didn't want to keep pushing myself to try and read this when I wasn't going to enjoy it. There are loads of things in this book that I thought were great when I originally read it. This is about a young girl who sets up a blog and basically is financially self-sufficient and emotionally self-sufficient when her boyfriend breaks up with her for essentially not needing her, or like her not needing him, and like gets together with this other guy's girlfriend who also dumps him. They kind of become friends. The dumped become friends and kind of learn about relying on each other a little bit more. But what I took from it was not that I needed a partner, but that I needed to set up an online business. So there are things like that that I really liked and really appreciated, and they have definitely become a formative part of my childhood. I don't want to reread it and find out it's bad. I don't want to. And I know it will be because I've tried reading so many other books by Sarah Manning and I've hated them that I just didn't want to risk it. So we didn't read that one. It never happened. I DNF'd The It Girl. I DNF'd it. I think I got about 16 pages in. It was fatphobic. It was racist. It was misogynist. The internalized misogyny. Oh my God, it was awful. It was so bad. It was so bad. And I had like 15 of those books. So it was really cathartic to just get them off my shelves, I will never think about it again. I enjoy the Gossip Girl series. Again, I enjoyed the It Girl series when I read them as a kid. I don't enjoy them as an adult, so they're off my shelves. You will never see them with me again. I also unhauled Pirates. I tried reading it a couple of times and I TBR'd it 3 times and then just eventually never finished it. So I do this thing on my channel where if I TBR something 3 times and don't read it, I have to unhaul it. And in my mind, it's one of those things where if I've TBR'd it, not even necessarily over consecutive months, and not got to it, there's either a reason that I'm not interested in it, or I'm lying to myself and I'm not interested in it. Like, why is it here? Why is it taking up space? So I love Celia Reese. I read The Witch Child and adored it. I think I still have that somewhere, but I read The Cunning Man by Celia Reese as well. Did not enjoy it. Did not enjoy the horror vibe of that. And I've unhauled Survey as well. I just don't think Celia Reese is where I am for 2023. So having tried Pirates a couple of times and not getting to it and just not prioritising it, I unhauled it. So the 10th book on this list is obviously the one that I had planned to get to for this vlog and didn't, and that is How to Be Popular by Meg Cabot. Now, there are loads of books by Meg Cabot that I've tried and really enjoyed, and loads that I've tried and they have not held up. Do I know where this book is going to stand either side? No. Will I probably do a Meg Cabot vlog where I try and finish the other owned books that I have by her? Time will tell. So let me know in the comments down below, what is a childhood book of yours that you would love to read, but you are convinced it is not going to hold up? Like, it's just not going to be as good as you remember. Because it would really make me feel better about picking up these books that I adored as a kid and I can't stand now. Like, that would make me feel so much better about myself. So thank you if you could leave that as a comment down below. If you just want to let me know you were here, however, feel free to leave any kind of childhood toy emoji down in the comments below. Treat yourself to something from Waypoint because it supports me and my content, and most importantly, have a nice day.